Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Steven Malkowich, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. Okay, welcome. Mo, thank you so much for coming to Ship of Fools. Welcome aboard.
My pleasure.
We got a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. And one of the things I wanted to start off with is everything feels like it's moving, but nobody's sure where it's going.
Okay. Yeah.
That's just a general statement. I came up with something in my head and going, what the hell are we going to talk about here? But there's a perception that things are moving.
Are they?
Are they really? Really? Is anything? And I'll start on the political side of things.
Yeah.
The last provincial election, which I just through happenstance got involved in. And
were you volunteering for a candidate or?
Yeah, I was. I live out in South Surrey, White Rock.
Okay.
And I live in Brent Chapman's rock.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What a character. Let's talk about Brent Chapman. I had some hot takes about him during the election, for sure.
And whose wife is now the Conservative leader in the province of British Columbia. Okay. And listen, I've been politically involved for a long time, federally, and I'm a card-carrying conservative.
Sure.
Remember, I am. I am a conservative. I used to call myself a progressive conservative. I'm a conservative.
You're not progressive anymore.
I'm not progressive anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just conservative.
Yeah, you're stagnant.
That's right. I'm stagnant.
You either pick stagnant or regressive. If you're not progressive, you got to pick one or the other.
You know what I look at it? The way I rationalize things, Mo, now is that on the conservative end of things, and my father taught me this.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. He belonged to, and I've said this before, he belonged to an organization called Ducks Unlimited. Out in the prairies. Ducks Unlimited.
Okay.
Okay. And
were there a lot of ducks?
Yeah. What they did, it was a bunch of rich, largely Americans, but Canadian guys that would pay a lot of money, and they created these conservation areas for waterfowl.
Oh, cool.
And the reason they did that was to conserve the game birds, so that they could go hunting.
Yeah.
Now, everything they shot, they ate. They were very, it was a very well-run organization. And my father said to me, conservatives conserve. They conserve things.
Sure.
We're not about, now, talk to him about certain things that were beyond his comprehension.
Yeah.
He didn't, he was, Manitoba prairie boy, grew up on the farm, Ukrainian, certain values that he had kind of thing. But he evolved. He evolved. And, but I'm, and I grew up that you could, if you were wearing a blue shirt, I was voting for you. That's the way.
That's why I wore it. So go easy on me.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll segue into the BC political situation right now. And sure. I was trying to say that I didn't understand. I kept on saying to anyone that would listen, if they weren't going to vote Conservative, has your life gotten better in the last 8 years?
Right.
I just want, and what do you mean by better? Okay, are things more affordable? Is there a bridge being built on Highway 99? And I started listing things off.
Yeah.
But they still lost.
Barely. It was close.
It was close.
It was really close. And I don't think it should have been that close. I remember I was sitting on the analysis desk on CBC Vancouver, talking about the election results as they were coming in. They were kind of going back and forth throughout the night. It could have been a conservative government. I mean, when you look down at the votes and you kind of hammer down, it's like it's under 1,000 votes that kind of determined, who formed government. And I said, I made this comment about how, kind of on a shoestring budget that seemed to at times cater to, the worst type of conspiracy theorists and that type of stuff. Like it was a, I don't want to say it was a bad campaign because it was successful in some regards, but it was, a very non-traditional kind of scatterbrained campaign where candidates were not vetted properly,
Oh.
and they came so close.
Yeah.
And I said that it was, I don't think I used the word embarrassment, but I did say, like, it's not a big win for the NDP. Like,
Yeah.
this should not have been close by any stretch of the imagination, and yet it was. So I think the people behind that campaign, of the Conservative campaign, I should say, should be very happy with how they did based on where they were. The reality is, I don't think that they were even gunning for government until, August, when BC United collapsed. And so to put that campaign together, to come as close as they did, I think says a lot. And I thought it was going to be a wake-up call for the premier, but apparently we're kind of getting more of the same.
Yeah, not. But the issue, the other issue too, was that it certainly didn't take very long for them to sit in opposition before the knives came out, like before everything went for shit.
Yeah.
And then the lights finally went on, because I've been out here for a long time and I never understood why there was no Conservative Party. And and it was SoCred. And I worked in Ottawa too. I came out here for SoCred convention, or not convention, elections. I was very involved as a kid. I worked for 2 summers for the Mulroney government as exempt, and it wasn't because I was special. It's because my dad knew somebody. I admit that.
Sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, I learned a lot when I was there. But I never understood why there was never any Conservative Party in the province of British Columbia. And it took me a number of years, and it wasn't until this last provincial go-around that I finally figured it out.
What's the thesis?
They cannot play in the same sandbox. And I'm going to tell you a little story about us prairie folk.
Okay.
We always had those nuts. We always did. Jimmy, who believed that, the only woman around should be barefoot and pregnant and sitting in the kitchen and doing what I tell her, that kind of shit.
These are your stereotypes, to be clear. I'm not.
That's right. You don't have to. But we never, ever got him close to the microphone.
Yeah.
We'll take your money, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Everything's cool. Okay. You just go over there and please do not say anything. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Now what happened, and I think it is because of social media and everything, the unvetted candidates, it was like, I think the earth is flat,
Yeah.
just stuff like that. And you go, okay, well, do you guys want to get elected? Don't say shit like that.
Yeah. Don't
say that stuff.
And I think the BC Liberal Party, which was a coalition of federal Conservatives and federal Liberals, also did a good job in maintaining that coalition and not letting, quote unquote, those people up to the microphone, as you said. But you're right. I think social media kind of broke things apart, and what you saw from certainly the provincial Conservatives, but I would argue also the federal Conservatives, and they're going through their own civil war and unrest right now as well, is that they realize, like, oh, some of these people have really big reach on social media, and we need to weaponize them and sort of deploy them in our own cause. And of course, the problem with that is you let that loose, and then they're going to come back with their own grievances and politics towards yourself. And that's what we kind of saw in the Conservative leadership race. I think that's what we saw even just throughout the campaign itself of, some of the people that had theories about 5G and, the COVID vaccines and whatever. And they were saying things that were very off-putting to, I think, most normies, or at least most urban normies. I feel like you see this to a certain degree on the left too, is like anytime you start drifting too far out to the ideological extremes, you reach this culture of like eating each other. Mm-hmm. And I think the Conservatives federally were going through that. I think provincially they've been going through that. And I don't necessarily know how it resolves itself. I'm not convinced that KLF is the, Kerry-Lynne Findlay, I should say, is the, climax of this tension, because it'll always exist, where it will never be good enough for the super ideological extreme. It will just never be good. And even if it's a few steps short, you're selling out, you're a liberal, or on the left, it's like, oh, you're a centrist, you're also a liberal. Like the left will call people liberals in a derogatory way from the other side. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating thing that we're seeing, but the key here is, while you're right, I think it's always existed, the parties themselves have enabled it. And so the same people, including Pierre Poilievre, including, John Rustad to a certain degree, like the same people that enabled it, they're coming out and saying, oh, we need to get back to basics and principles. And it's like, well, it's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah. When they were going after your political opponents in somewhat unsavory ways, you had no issues with it. When they were popping off about, whatever, you seem to try to say it wasn't a big deal. And now you're saying, oh, well, the whole movement or the whole party's at stake. And it's like, okay, well, you reap what you sow, man.
Yeah. And it remains to be seen here because, we're entering into the fall. Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things going on. We've got a municipal election coming up. Okay. Which, you can see the kind of, I'm not going to call it Looney Tunes. I'm not.
I mean, it's coming up in 2028, but it could happen at any time
Yeah.
because of the slim majority that the BC NDP holds.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. I with the provincial thing, but the municipal election
That's coming
here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Mayor Ken Sims, like, I watch things from the periphery. I'm not like really, honestly, I live out in, way out there. And I feel like over the years, like I feel like I need to pull my passport out to go to North Van.
You do. We have. I live in North Van, so you need checkpoints.
Okay, good.
We're a gated suburb.
When does that special tax for you come into effect for the wastewater plant?
Oh man, that's a great question. It comes into effect as I think the payments are made on the wastewater plant. I actually toured it recently.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. One of the perks of being in the media. So I
can't think of anything that I would like to do more.
It was fascinating because I think, a lot of these wastewater plant sites are done on 13 acres or so. Mm-hmm. They're done on larger acreage. And this site is done on like 4. And so they're using this stacking model where basically instead of, spreading things out, things are stacked upon each other to modernize. This had to be done. There's only so much land that's available. If you think about, it has to be near water.
How much
obviously.
did it cost?
It's way too much. I think it's going to cost, the projection is $4 billion, right?
Isn't
or just shy of 4
Isn't
billion.
it more than that now? Like,
well, we'll see what the final tab ends up being.
Like I look at it as the cost of a bridge where the Fraser Tunnel is.
Yeah. And I think.
See, it's all about me.
Yeah.
Mo,
no,
and my commute. Okay.
I don't want to talk too much about the wastewater plant either, so we can move on to something else. But what I'll say is it's a cost that partially is going to be borne by all residents of Metro Vancouver. So there will be a property tax increase, which I think it's like $40 per $40 or $90 or something. But then most of it will be the North Shore residents for sure. So
okay,
yeah,
okay. So let's get back to municipal politics here,
Sure.
and let's get back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Recently, there was a letter circulating saying that there's a bid for a Major League Baseball team.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, like, right on.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's going to be a big municipal election in Vancouver.
No.
Bringing a baseball team in.
But the thing is that didn't Ken Sims come out in favor of this? No.
Sure, and most, I think. Any political candidate would, because there's no political cost to being like, yeah, we should do this. The problem is, where do you put the stadium, right? Stadium economics are very different now. And it's almost this, it's almost the business model of a real estate entertainment district. So you don't just, as a team owner, the team is the vehicle for owning the stadium, and it's for owning the real estate around it, because you can create an entertainment district, you can have condos up, whatever. You can create this whole district. And that's where modern stadiums are going. That's certainly where baseball stadiums, football stadiums, even if you look at the Canucks, the Aquilini's own condo buildings around Rogers Arena. So there's only one site which is the VPD parking lot near their headquarters that could possibly house this. It's a little tight. I don't know how much of an entertainment district could be created, but that's like the one site that you could do that. But then all this talk about MLB brings into question, well, what about the Whitecaps? Or have we just given up on them? Because again, the issue with the Whitecaps is not fan passion or a market. It's just not a profitable model in the MLS to not own your stadium and to be effectively a tenant in BC Place. So yeah, I mean, this is all like distraction stuff and stuff, and it's like low. It doesn't really require a ton of work to be like, yeah, I support it. Like anyone can say that.
So the city of Vancouver, or the city of Vancouver, and the mayor, and do you give those guys a passing grade, or is that too much to ask?
Well, what I would say is, I think, especially with FIFA, they're going to get a little bit of a bump. They're riding vibes. I think people had a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, people. But I heard hotel occupancy was down.
No, the business community is not. I don't think they're particularly thrilled with Ken Sim and ABC Vancouver. I don't think many people are particularly thrilled with Ken Sim and ABC Vancouver. But I think what that party understands is when you look at who's running against them, whether it's the Vancouver Liberals or One City or the Greens. No one's taking a firm stance on zero property tax increases. Now, obviously, ABC Vancouver, really did increase property taxes their first 3 years. And the fourth year, they have the zero means zero budget. You can debate whether it's actually zero, and that's fine. But none of the other parties are even saying that, hey, keeping your property taxes flat is a priority. They're the only one, ABC Vancouver is the only one saying it. ABC Vancouver is also probably the only party that's taking a harder or more supportive stance for public safety when it comes to policing. The Vancouver Liberals have kind of like found this moderate lane for that, but in terms of like who is the public safety party, it's probably ABC Vancouver, especially given their cozy relationship with the VPD. And so, and I say cozy relationship because, the Vancouver Police Union did endorse them in 2022 as well. And so this municipal election in Vancouver, ABC Vancouver might only need 30% of the popular vote to win the mayor's seat, and maybe close to that number to win, a majority on council. Because the vote otherwise, that balanced 70% is split between some moderate parties like the Vancouver Liberals, and some parties on the left like One City and Cope. So, I don't know if I give them a passing grade, but we've seen in Surrey in 2022, Mayor Brenda Locke won the mayorship with less than 30% of the popular vote. So it's possible.
And you have a voter turnout of about 27%, 25%.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It really is. And I know we briefly discussed, you didn't want to talk a lot about Surrey, but
just not that well versed. I know a little bit about a little bit.
Yeah. And I was a publisher of that newspaper from 1998 to 2004. It was a fun place. It was. I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we were under the thumb of our corporate brethren for a little while. That was, the Vancouver Sun and Province. So we weren't allowed to do a lot of things that we wanted to do. And if we did do something that was successful, they just steal it. But that's fine. But Surrey was in my mind in those years was on a trajectory of, it's not, because jokingly people used to call it scurvy, and it was the place.
Scurvy?
Yeah.
I hadn't even heard that. I heard slurry.
Oh, I got I got a lot.
I heard
of them.
slurry a lot. I never.
I got a lot of them.
Okay. Yeah.
For every municipality, I do. And that's because my son played a lot of hockey and junior hockey, so they always have nicknames. They used to call Vancouver Island Shutter Island.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I haven't heard that one either. Okay.
Yeah.
What do they call North Van? Paradise?
Well, the thing is, they never shit on North Van because my son played hockey at the North Shore Winter Club.
Got it.
So they never shit on them. But the Richmond was Ditchman.
Yeah. Okay.
Maple Ditch.
Yeah.
Shitty Whack. They just all these names that they had. But regardless, Surrey was it was kind of on this trajectory of, and it stalled at some time. And an appreciation, I went away for a while. Like I was in Winnipeg, went back to run some businesses, and came back, and I know New Westminster real well. I know Burnaby pretty well. Surrey I knew real well. I knew South Surrey, White Rock. I'm not saying it was on this trajectory to like this, but it seems to have stalled. And one of the biggest issues was this shit show between the RCMP and the Surrey Police Service.
Yeah.
And that thing. And there's still, I don't know when it ends. And I actually had Tig Pollock on from the Surrey Police Service, and I appreciate, he was a great guy, but he can't say anything. They recently fired their chief of police and came out on record and said without cause, which is, I've been an employer for a number of years, and you never
Something
ever
happened. Everyone knows. Yeah, and they won't say it. People want to know.
Yeah, people want to know.
Yeah.
And what happened. And the thing is that battle cost the taxpayer a shit ton of money. And Brenda Locke was elected, and then I think they had a plebiscite or something like that but the provincial government finally stepped in and said, look, no, you're going with your own police service. Now, listen, and I was around during Brenda, like a lot of these people that are in place in Surrey, in 1998, they were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was a big fan of Doug McCallum, but the one thing he had that I liked is that he said that Surrey needed its own police service. And I believe that.
Yeah.
I do. And I have my reasons for it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once you make the decision, execute, fulfill it. And this thing seems to be just dragging on and dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And I can't get an explanation from anybody as to, okay, well, when does this end?
Well, I think it has ended in terms of Surrey having its own police force.
Well,
that's
do.
Where they're at.
But it's
not
not,
gonna go back.
The transition isn't done.
No, the transition, I mean, obviously those things take a long time. They take some time to accomplish. I would say, the important piece you're missing is the backdrop of, Surrey is a place with a lot of potential in terms of real estate, in terms of commercial activity. It's certainly going to be the biggest city in British Columbia. It's on pace for that. But the backdrop here is twofold, I would say. The first is a public safety issue. You have these issues with gangs and the extortion crisis and all this stuff. And so that's where policing comes in terms of what's the best way to address, serious public safety issues that you have in Surrey. The second is Surrey's always gotten, despite its size and its growth, kind of got the short end when it comes to major amenities. And this is a provincial issue, but when it comes to hospitals, when it comes to schools, the portables are still there all over.
They build a new school, and then within 2 weeks, there's portables up.
I would say, it probably deserves more rapid transit than it has. I know obviously there's the line that's just into Surrey now, but it's just a place that I think has been neglected, and it kind of becomes this, despite being a riding rich area for the province, kind of becomes neglected by whoever's in charge. And, it swung one way from the Christy Clark government to the John Horgan government. And as we saw in 2024 in the provincial election, the ridings that flipped towards the Conservatives were a big surprise. Yeah, a lot of them were seen as very safe seats. Rachna Singh, who is the education minister, she lost her seat. That was a big surprise. And that's effectively what kind of narrowed the gap between the two parties. You're going to see, I think, in this upcoming municipal election, Brenda Locke is going to be almost, I think, probably campaigning against the provincial government. And I think Ken Sim is doing a little bit of that too, of okay, listen, I'm trying to do these things, but at the end of the day, we need the province to back us. And I'm the fighter that's fighting the province. And I think that Brenda Locke has done a really good job as portraying that. She's a very lovely lady. I loved chatting with Brenda Locke when I did. I think Ken Sim is doing that as well in terms of hammering the province. And it's an opportune time to do that because we've seen, Premier David Eby's polling continues to sink to all-time lows in terms of favorability. So will the voters of Vancouver and Surrey, look to elect a mayor that's going to fight the province or stand up for their community? Maybe, because there's a lot of frustration with the province. If the province was seen, or if the provincial government was seen in a favorable light, then perhaps you would have, a more collaborative candidate be a lot more appealing. But I think effectively, whether it's Brenda Locke or Ken Sim, these two mayors in particular are going to be running their campaigns, in contrast to the province, who they'll make their main antagonist.
What's interesting is that I can't help but think if there is and I had a good conversation with Brad West, the mayor of Poco, and I liked him. He's a young guy.
A lot of conservatives like him.
I liked him, but I was, and I was trying to figure out what he was.
It's populist.
I don't know.
I was
kind of thinking.
You still don't know why you like him?
I like him.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out if he was a social democrat. And
I think he's like a labor left type.
And then I started machinating in my head, okay, the next provincial election, are the NDP going to go after him for the leadership of the party? And if they do that, they win. I'm just saying. That's just my opinion.
I've said that.
Simple.
Yeah.
Simple, very simple, because he's a personable guy, got a great story, single mom, worked her ass off, gives me goosebumps just thinking like his is a good story. And I don't honestly, Port Moody, Port Coquitlam, all the same to me. I couldn't tell you, and I apologize.
You should apologize.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize, but I liked him. I really did.
Well, I think what he taps into is populism, right? And when we talk about populism, I feel like it's one of those ambiguous words that means different things to different people. But ultimately, when he communicates, and I would argue often when he governs in Port Coquitlam, he is keeping people at the forefront of decision making. And, would he be against bending the rules if it meant helping people in a material way? I don't think he would be. I think the public responds to that. And oftentimes we have this professional class, you can call them technocrats, you can call them professional consultants or whatever, where they're looking at things from a high level, utilitarian or type of way of what would create the most good in the future and all this stuff without looking at what's happening on the ground in terms of material needs. A great example, I think, was a really sad case of, I think her name was Charlie Pollock. She was a young girl who had this very rare disease, and the provincial government, as per their bureaucratic rules, were not willing to fund her medication. And again, bureaucratically, in a systems-based approach, it makes sense because, how much will the province go for, how much will the province end up doling out for every single extreme rare case illness where perhaps the medication isn't proven, or at least, proven in a full scientific sense or whatever. But the parents were saying this medication is working, it's alleviating her pain. Can we just continue this medication? And the province really dragged their heels and eventually, caved. But a populist would say, okay, well, if it's making this girl better, just do it. You do whatever, we'll figure it out. And I think that's the approach. I mean, Brad was actually quite vocal about that particular issue as well. Mm-hmm. Another populist approach would be, okay, we can get ferries made in China for a lot cheaper and a lot faster, and they'll deliver services, at a shorter timeline. But a populist might say, no, let's help BC shipbuilders. Let's keep these jobs internally. So populism, I would say, is like sometimes you're not picking that necessarily quote unquote the best policy option, but you're picking an option where people see the value in it, and it's not about just cost benefit or greater good. It's like, let's actually make a material difference in people's lives. And I think the NDP, I think John Horgan had a streak of that as well.
Yeah, I won't argue that.
Yeah, when you could argue from a policy perspective that getting rid of the tolls on the bridge to Surrey was not good policy. You could say getting rid of the MSP and putting it onto employers as an employer health tax, maybe that was not good policy. But it was populist in the sense that it spoke to regular people, and they saw the value in those proposals. I think you're seeing a little bit of it with Kerry-Lynne Findlay when she was running for leadership, and obviously won leadership, when she's talking about getting rid of gas taxes. That's something that would blow a hole in our provincial budget. Maybe it's not good policy.
Yeah.
But she's talking about getting rid of the taxes on prepared foods like they did in Manitoba. But if you're just some normie, and most of us are just some normies, like we're the weird ones that follow politics as closely as we do. But if you're just some normie and go, oh, you're going to save me that much money on my weekly, gas bill? Hell yeah, let's do this. Like, they don't really care about some of this ideological, party, team, whatever. They're looking at their wallet, they're looking at their life, and that policy speaks to people. And I think you need you can't go full populist in a way, because you do have to be responsible with things like budget and certainly systemic concerns of how government operates. But a prudent government, I think, is willing to bend on a systems-based approach and adopt populist things, knowing that this will actually keep people happy.
And we are in a, like, the provincial government's in a, like, our debt is just ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous.
Sure.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's out of control. And I don't know if anybody is paying, the bond agencies are certainly paying attention, but the unfortunate thing is that for every British Columbian, it means we owe more. Okay. We're spending so much on, and you're right. Like, we're sitting here debate. Most people, they don't give a shit. Like, they just go, okay, well, how come gas is like $2.09 today? You know what I mean? It was $1.92 a week ago. Yeah, I'm serious. I mean that. Like, and that makes a difference. Those are things that make differences.
100%.
And when Carney came out and got rid of the carbon tax, whoa, that was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I think Canada stopped for a moment and went, whoa.
Well, he took Pierre's bazooka out of the equation, right? And so
there's not, yeah.
But I do think that I think the budget deficits and the debt do matter to more regular people for one reason only. And that reason is not necessarily the financial condition or state of the province, but that reason is it feels like, as you said, things are not getting better. If you go to the ER, you're waiting for hours.
10 hours?
A lot of people still don't have a family doctor. And if you do, it takes, a couple weeks to be able to see them. You look at other services, it feels like they're deteriorating. There are more portables in a lot of different school districts. If all of those things were fine, right? Like, if we had a 100% optimally functioning healthcare system, if it felt like, schooling was not deteriorating, and I'm talking about really physical infrastructure more than anything. If we had if we're building out these mass transit plans that were going to modernize our cities, people wouldn't give a shit about the debt, right? Because, like, your life's great, but the debt, I think, becomes more spotlighted when you're like, well, where's all this money going? What are we investing in? Are we actually creating a space for an economically vibrant and prosperous province? And that feeling is not there.
Yeah,
and that's where the debt really becomes a political issue.
And the nurses are on strike.
Sure.
Right. Okay. And if the nurses get another, what do they offer them? 12%. If they get one more, whatever they get, everyone else gets in the provincial government.
Sure, through the public sector. Yeah. I mean, these all set benchmarks, absolutely.
Yeah. And so even if it's 1% more, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting, listen, I use the healthcare system. I have some things that are very important to me that I use the healthcare system for.
Yeah.
Okay. And I
would rather give money to a nurse at VGH or at Lionsgate than some bureaucrat in
I don't disagree.
Victoria, right?
I do
know the
not
numbers aren't
disagree
the same, but
at all.
I think going against nurses and teachers to a certain degree is like it's not good politics.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all. I really don't. My kids, like when you talk about the education system, my youngest is 30. I have grandkids.
Okay. Good for you.
So I was very involved in my children's education,
Sure,
more than they preferred. Okay. But I grew up in a household where my mother enjoyed going to parent-teacher interviews just to find out, what did you do?
Yeah.
Jesus. And you had to be careful as to what you admitted to because she might not know about that. But the thing is that I learned at a very young age with children because I became very good friends with superintendent of schools in Surrey many, many, many years ago. And I learned a very, very important lesson. And I was pissed off at the elementary school where my two little ones were going. And I made a big scene. And I very, very rarely would flash my card and say who I was.
Okay.
Very rarely. I never played
What
that
was
game.
the big issue?
It was, I'll tell you, there was a woman around in the playground with a machete.
Wow.
Okay. So I found out about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if it was hearsay, and I walked right into the administrative office, into the principal's office, and I wanted to talk to the principal because I wanted to. And they admitted it was, but it was a private public thing, and we're trying to deal with this, and I'm like, that's not good enough. Okay, and immediately got an audience with the superintendent of schools, and at that moment I was going to pull the kids out and put them in private school, and this individual. Superintendent of schools, he basically sat me down and he said to me, a very learned guy, Irishman, and he said to me, the difference between public and private is you. And what that means is you, the parent. Do you care? Because if you care, you're involved in your child's education.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And that resonated with me. I went, okay, I get you.
Yeah.
He goes, you can go spend whatever. You can go to White Rock Christian. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you,
at the end of the day,
it's you.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going, and he says, I'm not telling you to be a pain in the ass. I'm telling you, be involved.
Yeah.
Know what's going on.
Totally.
And school's not a babysitting service.
Yeah.
You got to be on it. Okay. And okay. And that was an important lesson. That was a long, long, long time ago. And I remember it.
Yeah.
I do. So and the education, healthcare, and I used to believe that we had I've traveled extensively throughout the United States, pretty much to every state. And one of the things that I used to be very, 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 very proud of was our healthcare system. Our education system. I think that our post-secondary system is fantastic. I really do. I believe I'm a product of it.
Sidebar here. Your last guest, Andy Hira, was my thesis supervisor for my my master's degree at SFU. Right on. I was I was like, I've seen a few of your episodes, and then just the other day, I was like, oh, who did he have on last week? And I was like, oh, Andy Hira. Yeah. I know him.
Yeah. No, Andy was great.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, after that episode, Andy sent me this like 20 text messages about stuff he wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And but no, it was great. Yeah. It was.
So
good.
anyway, small world, but you mentioned that and I was like, oh yeah. I have to.
Yeah. So anyway, I talking about is BC politics unique?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I feel like we're a bit of the Wild West. I mean, we just had official opposition leader removed because of quote unquote professional incapacitation. I don't think that's happened anywhere else in the country, I should say. I do think we're unique. we're unique in a sense where we're kind of ground zero for a lot of things that have been happening throughout the country. So we're kind of like the canary in the coal mine, whether it's the toxic drug deaths crisis, whether it was in the housing crisis. There's a lot of things that kind of hit us first before they make the radar on Ottawa. In terms of how our internal politics work, are we unique? Maybe. Is our BC NDP party different than the other NDP parties across the country? Some would argue yes, we're a little more centrist. Is our Conservative Party different than what we see across the country? I would say that in 2024, our provincial Conservative Party, the BC Conservatives, were kind of on the forefront of a lot of issues that other parties are now catching up on, particularly the federal Conservatives. So yeah, in some ways, I do feel like we're unique. But again, I'm not that well versed in the politics of other provinces. So perhaps those provinces are also unique, which is just to say that every province has its own challenges and it has to be governed in very different ways. So perhaps we are unique in that regard.
I think, and this is my opinion, being a transplant, but this is my home now.
Yeah.
BC, especially the Lower Mainland, is a progressive area.
Yeah, of course.
It is. Okay. I came out here in 1977. My aunt used to live out here. And I remember, it was progressive at that time.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that I saw that I never saw back home.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons I wanted to raise a family out here, because I wanted that exposure to everything.
Sure.
And I still, and I don't know if I'll put on my Canadian hat here. I haven't lost hope in multiculturalism.
You shouldn't. I think multiculturalism is a wonderful thing. Obviously.
That's what made Canada what it. My grandparents came from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. And made a life of it. Everybody's from somewhere else, and we open our arms up. We encourage you to celebrate your own cultural identity, but be a Canadian. Okay, and I mean that. Be a Canadian, and that doesn't mean that you have to totally assimilate. And Winnipeg was unique in the fact that they have this celebration. I think they still have it. It's called Folklorama. Okay. Every culture is presented to you over a 2-week period.
Cool. You
go to these things, and that's how I was brought up. Okay. Some people will say that multiculturalism has been an abject failure in Canada. Some people.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not necessarily one of them, because everybody is from somewhere else. Okay. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Everyone's from somewhere else. And I'm proud to have Asian friends. I'm proud to have Indian friends. I'm proud to have my doctor's Nigeria. I'm going to go be bugging him about the World Cup when I go see him again.
Yeah.
I tell you a little funny story. I'm not a soccer guy. Okay. But I walked into his office a week ago, and I was bugging him about World Cup, and he said, there's no team from Africa, nothing to cheer for. And I said, I don't know, I think that Holland guy's the best striker in the world.
Yeah.
And he lost his shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was just funny.
Yeah.
And I was praying that Norway beat England.
Yeah.
I really was.
Yeah.
Because I really was. And that Norwegian strike, he's a mule. He was a mule. He was a great player, and I don't think anyway, it was hilarious. But now I know when I see him, he's going to be going, I told you. He said to me, he goes, you ever heard of Messi?
Yeah.
Who?
I think, in a lot of ways, multiculturalism, obviously I'm a big proponent of multiculturalism, and I think people that immigrate here, certainly my parents, they come here for a better life, and they recognize the the values and the culture that are presented in Canada, and they embrace them, right? But I think what we're seeing has more to do with a different shift in our society. When you think about, I obviously grew up in the 90s. There was a shared culture of what we all consumed. There was only a few television stations. People watched generally the same shows, and you have to watch them at the same time. Movies came out in a way where, you're kind of watching the same movies at the same time. Everyone's consuming the news together, whether it's, one station or another, but you're consuming it all. And now the fragmentation of our culture, and that's not multiculturalism, but the general fragmentation of how you consume media, how you interact with your community. It is, community events when I was growing up used to be a big thing. If there was something going down in Deep Cove or around Lonsdale, like, your families would go, and it was just a community meeting place. And I don't know if we necessarily have that because we're so aware of what's happening all over the place, or you could entertain yourself to death at home.
Oh yeah.
And so because we don't have that shared consumption and participation of the same thing, you can easily silo yourself.
Yes.
And so people often point to multiculturalism as this terrible villain, but you could literally point to, political ideologies as well, because you can silo yourself and your algorithm will only feed you that. And then now you're kind of like this weirdo, outside of, normie culture. And it happens with a lot of things. In some ways it's great because whatever your niche interest is, you can find a community globally or whatever. But in some ways, I think it's making us more distant from each other in our own local communities. And so, this backlash, quote unquote, against multiculturalism, I think has more to do with just how rapidly our society has changed. Because, this was obviously, you would have, people I would call racists in the past saying, oh, multiculturalism sucks in the 90s. But I think now the issue is more about, do we all share the same culture? And I don't think it has to do with race or what your ancestral home is. I think it has more to do with, we just have so many options of what we consume on a daily basis. And we are consumers, right? So that, I think, becomes the key issue and problem. And I don't know how to actually fix that.
Well, that's a good segue into the media landscape.
Yeah.
Because you touched on it. Okay. Where people are getting their news, where they're getting their information from, whether or not something is real. Like, there's a bunch of shit out there. Like, there really is, and it's really easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole.
Totally.
And looking at, and going, like, my wife and I she'll go, is this even, like I've said to, I can't remember what the one, Donald Trump, I can't remember what Sesame Street character it was. He pointed, and for a moment it was, come on, kind of thing. But,
yeah, and with AI, it's even worse.
Yeah, so there is, and we sit there, in the United States, Mitch McConnell, who's like, they take a picture of him.
Yeah, it's not enough.
That's not enough.
We want more proof.
We want more proof that you're alive.
Yeah.
And what kind of world is this? Like, I mean that. Like, I'm. What kind of world do we live in, where we're okay? Here he is. He looks, I don't know, like that photo could be doctored, and we and the thing is that we're so quick to judge. Like, we really are. We're so quick to judge. I don't need any.
And we feel, and listen, I probably fall prey to this as well. Not only quick to judge, but quick to publicly voice our opinion on everything. Right?
Oh yeah. Like,
I just sank in my seat a little bit. Yeah, like it's. Sorry, we're talking
about mediascape, landscape, and consuming it and making a judgment on something that you don't even.
Well, what I think it reflects is a low trust society, because now you don't trust anything, right? A photo is not good enough. A video is not good enough. And then I think it also reflects an erosion in institutions that were holding everything together. None of this is good. a low trust society, erosion in our institutions. These are the opposite of the things that bind us together. And this is a big problem because we now live in a world where you really can't trust anything. Everything is a conspiracy, and we all are consuming different media. And so we're all, and different things that, in a sense, that we're all living in different realities. You spend enough time on Twitter, you might think that
I won't even go there.
you might think that Canada is some like hellscape and everything's falling apart. But then the last few weeks here, during FIFA, this was amazing. This is a great place to be. Mm-hmm. Right. And, and that's why people say, oh, touch grass, go outside and like whatever. Mm-hmm. And sure, we have our very big challenges when it comes to important things like healthcare, even public safety. Sure. But at the end of the day, like this one of the best places in the world.
Oh, hands
right?
No, hands down.
But there's a segment of the population that feels like we've sunk into, developing country status.
Mm-hmm. We're not,
which just isn't true.
It's not. That's not true. That's not true. And the thing is that we're back to the general term of the media landscape and trying to get a message out there. It's extremely, my background in the newspaper business, we're on the downslope. We have been on the downslope probably for the last 25, 30 years, maybe even 40 years.
Community papers were the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, they were.
Right?
Yeah, they were.
So that was that should have been the big signal to everyone to adapt or do what they can to adapt. But ultimately, when you look at the big news outlets, they're still the ones doing most of the news reporting.
Well, CBC, the public broadcaster, the unfortunate, I was a CBC guy for a long time and I'm not so much.
Why?
And I'm just
You're falling for the propaganda.
No, I'm not,
is lying to you, Steve.
No, I try and watch the National.
Yeah.
It's like and I can't. It's just and I'm not talking left or right. I'm just and I don't know what it is, but I still watch, and I watch PBS the news too, and that's becoming less of a newscast too. I wish it would go back to when it was a newscast. But I really don't have, and I admit this openly, a news outlet I watch Global, which is like McDonald's. I watch 21 minutes of the National Global on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that gives me my cheeseburger, kind of thing. And I wish, I don't listen to AM, FM radio. I'm a cable cutter. We have been cable cutters ever since.
Where do you get your local news? Where do you get your provincial news? National news, of course, you do have other options.
Yeah,
but your local base.
I read. I do have access to an application because of our newspapers. It's called Press Reader.
Yeah,
and anything I want is there. Almost every newspaper in the world is on there, and and if I find something that's got a paywall, I'm just I go in, but I do know what is going on.
I'm not saying you're not informed,
but
I'm just
I don't.
Asking, where do you get your news from? Then?
Yeah, I get it's like Google News at times. Like seriously,
but Google News will have links from the CBC and Global, and
it does. It does.
And I think a television broadcast. I mean,
this.
it's like a television broadcast. Your 6 o'clock news is a lot different than reading the newspaper. A newspaper is much more in depth. It'll give you more context.
1,000%.
The 2-minute segments you're seeing on the news, they're just giving you a backgrounder to a sense, like a primer on what's happening. But they're not going in depth the way that
I do for instance, I find out, and it's sourced by legitimate news organizations, and it's just passed on to me, through me, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a hodgepodge of things. I don't read, I'll look at the Globe and Mail. I will. The Sun and the Province sometimes I'll page through it online and look to see if there's anything. And
I'm trying to understand your issue with these outlets.
My issue,
And I'm saying, there are some.
yeah, no,
I'm
but
trying to understand
it's not such an issue. I know it's the same as us in the newspaper business. It's because the model has changed so dramatically, in that the revenues are down, and you can't. Now, CBC has a leg up here. It's a public broadcaster, and you can make an argument that we need it because we have to protect ourselves against the United States. Otherwise, we would be the United States of America. I get it. Canadian content. I get it. I understand that, but it's not so much that I have but I see when I do watch the news from on the CBC end, I do see a bias. I see a bias. And it's always, it is just it's anecdotal, but it appears to be towards, on a Canadian basis, it's always favored the Liberals. I get it. I'm not going to, can I name specific examples? I haven't watched for a long time, but the depth of their reporting, though, there's nobody else that even touches them in Canada.
Yeah.
So
is it the editor, because I think people confuse, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm saying a lot of people I know conflate news reporting, which tends to be generally unbiased, although you could criticize what they're reporting on and how they're reporting on and all that stuff. And they conflate it with editorial stuff, or they conflate it with, the panels you'll see on Power and Politics or whatever, right? Obviously, I sit on a panel at CBC, a weekly panel on the radio as well. And so the host, Gloria Makarenko, I think is pretty neutral and fair. And, like any host, myself included, you're going to get criticisms of how you frame things or whatever. But ultimately, I don't think she necessarily takes an opinion on issues. But me and Kyla Lee, my counterpart on that panel, we definitely take ideological positions. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're there for, right? We're also not in the bag for one party or another. We have our ideological biases and preferences, but we don't necessarily have our partisan biases or preferences. And so, I'll often see, like, my show we'll get emails from someone who go, I'll do a monologue, which is an opinion piece, and someone will say, "Oh, you're so biased, blah, blah, blah." And it's like, yeah, that's what an opinion is. That's what giving an opinion is. And it's my show. And I have guests that give other opinions that are counter to mine. And so you can try to reach some sort of balance. But this idea of we want, news reporting, including panel work, including this, to be completely unbiased. I just think it's unrealistic. And the same people, not you again, but a lot of the same people that complain about, CBC or Global or whatever, then they'll go to what is an ideological outlet, whether it's on the left or the right, and say, this is the best news.
Yeah, rebel news.
Yeah. And it's
I don't disagree with that. I'm...
And I want people to have a critical eye on everything. I think that's key. But we've kind of got to this point where I feel like some of the criticism is just a bit silly. Yeah. And it's like, well, what do you want? Do you just want to be validated when you watch the news? Or do you want to be challenged? Or do you want to watch something or consume something that feels somewhat neutral?
See, I bring, because of, I'm a Luddite, okay?
That's fine.
Self-admittedly. And my education in the news media business was I worked with some fantastic editors and some fantastic reporters. And what people don't understand about the business is that a good reporter, a good investigative reporter is supposed to be like sandpaper. Okay? They're not supposed to be your friend.
Yeah.
Okay? And don't pretend and the shit about being off the record. Nothing's off the record, my friend. Okay. And I've been doing this since 1989 now.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen it. I've been there. I've had my jacket ripped off in the office. I've had people death threat. I've had everything. But in my world, reporting was, now you decide.
Yeah.
Opinion was opinion.
Totally.
And it was labeled as such. And I see, it's not my term, but I see journalism out there. Like I see that, and no matter what, and I will admit this, that when a reporter reports, they bring their bias, somewhat of a bias to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're human.
But at the same token, as I've seen things evolve, it used to be that you and I would see a bank robbery.
Yeah.
Okay. And we might debate the color of the shirt of the bank robber, but we're both going to agree that that was a bank robbery.
Yeah.
Now, what's entered into this picture, and I know I'm over exaggerating it to a certain extent, but there's a debate whether or not it was a bank robbery. He was actually going in there to ask her for a date. He just happened to have a gun in his pocket.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of shit. And that drives me crazy. Like that interpretation of it, that's not that. And we see that sometimes. And I can look and I shouldn't, I do, but because we have this great big elephant beside us called the United States of America. And I look at that and go, okay, well, you know, if you're caught, deny it. If they even have pictures of it, deny it. Just keep on denying. Not so much prevalent in our system here. You know, we tend to, you know, you made a comment about institutions. We tend to take those institutions for granted.
Yeah.
We do. And I don't think that's a healthy thing. And I do think that our media consumption has something to do with that, where we're questioning things that are not, you know, it might be something that's scientific, you know, something that you're not gonna question, like, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't question, but I am saying that there's things that you should go, okay, I understand what the doctor is saying.
Yeah.
You know, and I should abide by that. You know, smoking is bad for you. You know, it's not good.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. There's certain inherent things that we should listen to. I'll say this about myself is a good rule to live by is don't be an asshole.
Sure.
Be a good person.
Yeah.
Try and be a good person. Sometimes it's hard, but
I would just say, I mean, going to news reporting, because again, I've known, and I do know many journalists who I think, particularly beat reporters, who are just doing an incredible job and very underappreciated. But you would understand this as well, is that there are certain editorial decisions either made by the journalist or the editor in terms of what information to include and what to exclude. You know, if in the case of the bank robbery scenario you just gave us, you know, is it important to include gender, race, age, whether they're a parent or not? I don't know. Maybe some of those things might be, some of those things might not be.
Yeah.
Right. But the inclusion or exclusion of certain information could possibly have either intended or unintended consequences of then how that story gets consumed. Right. If suddenly that bank robbery is a single mom who had some entitlements taken away from the government and this she was pushed to the edge and had to rob a bank, you would be reading that story a very different way as well,
yes.
right?
Yes.
But if that context is not provided, then you would be reading it a different way. So it's like, you know, I think this has always existed. I just think that now the importance of, while skepticism and media criticism is totally important, everyone with a Twitter account has now become like an expert media critic.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, a lot of the things that they should be looking at is great, but they take it to an nth degree because, again, I feel like a lot of people consume the news just to be validated.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I don't know. Maybe it is because of the fragmentation, but we got to this point now that we're only consuming things because we want to be proven that our worldview is correct. And that, I think, is the source of the issue. I don't think it's the content that journalism is producing. Of course, there's going to be news stories that I read and I'm like,
it's confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And
no media outlet's perfect. Yeah. But again, I do feel like some of it's overblown. And then the reality is, as I kind of posited it towards you, is, well, then where do you get your news? Like, then where do you go? Right. And again, we're talking about low trust, distrust in institutions. And at some point you have to have some faith
You do.
in our society
I don't
for it to
disagree.
function.
I don't
right?
disagree. I don't disagree. I still, you know what? I wish I got a community newspaper delivered to my door. I don't,
Yeah.
but I still read it on. Like I'll still pick up pieces online, and that's how I'll find out. A friend might send me a thing about something else, and I go, okay, well, I didn't know that. But things do come up, and like I try not to live in that world of confirmation bias. Like I really do. I want to have
we all fall victim to it. I think it's a normal thing that happens, but it's trying to catch yourself. You have a wide variety of guests on your program. So do I, and it's for that reason.
I want it. That's right.
Yeah.
And find out, okay, what's this all about? You know, and there's a lot of stuff I don't, you know, I know dangerously enough to get into trouble about, but on attempting to sort of bring everything together.
Sure.
The last topic, and I don't want to end on this note, but I want to nihilism.
Yeah.
And the public mood. Are we living in a nihilistic type world? And I mean, like, I don't feel nihilistic. I don't say, well, why bother?
Yeah.
I don't. I have a lot of reasons not to. And I believe in the inherent good of people. And I see somebody that's in trouble and is in need of help, I'm going to be there. I don't give a shit. I don't care. And I don't, you know, but are we living in a different age of nihilism, or do you know, and I have, you know, we've got 4 kids. And one of the boys said to me, this is a while back, he felt kind of nihilistic about things like that. And you know, and that was more of a discussion about getting ahead. And you know, when you say that to me, I go, getting ahead of who? You know what I mean? Like, what, you know, getting ahead.
Well, I assume it means
a
progressing in your life.
Yeah. And, you know, and owning a house and all those kinds of things. And this is the most expensive market in Canada. There's no question about it. When I moved out here, I remember buying my first house, and I phoned my dad, and my dad, you know, was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You're not making me feel any better. But we made it work. But I don't know, you know, I don't know what, and when I say young people, what does that mean? You know, what does young people mean? You know, what's that demographic? But are they feeling, are people that are younger than us feeling nihilistic, or are they? And one of the things that I do is when I meet somebody that's young and gives a shit, I go, that's good. That's good. Bring that to the table. Let's get more of that. Get involved.
Yeah. And, but then also what happens is, like, young people will bring their idealism, and then older people will tell them to, like, you know, hit the brakes.
Yeah,
and it's like,
no, I get it.
You know,
listen, if you're young and you're not a socialist, you don't have a heart.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, listen, I get that. And then as you get older, you realize things, and, you know, you don't want to rock the boat, but at the same time, you know, I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So is there, do you see it? Do you, like, you're on your panel, you're in the mainstream media, you know,
there's two ways to look at this.
Yeah.
I think I also, like you, believe that people are inherently good. Obviously there's bad people out there, but I think more often than not, particularly in this city, when you meet someone, they're probably a decent person. So I think on a human to human, in-person level, when it comes to your family, your friends, your work environment, I do think that we are not nihilistic. I think we actually do care about things. Like, because nihilism means, like, you don't give a shit about anything, right? And so on a personal level, I think that still very much exists. People do care about their community, they care about their family, they care about their friends, they care about their workplace. There is an amount of care and devotion to those things. But when it comes to, again, the institutions and the broader systems that we live in, I don't blame anyone for being nihilistic, whether it's, and this is a global thing, obviously, but whether it's, things like the Epstein files and how that was handled, whether it's, you look locally here in terms of our real estate market, as soon as things start crashing, we have a government ready to bail out developers, right? And so there's this feeling that all of the political systems and a lot of these institutions, it's all theater, it's all fake. And I understand that, and I sympathize with that, because it does feel like it is theater. And oftentimes it is, right? So we can't deny that. So I feel like on a systemic level, when we're looking at, the macro level, sure, there probably is a lot of nihilism. And there's a lot of people that go, all these politicians are the same. They never do anything for us, blah, blah, blah. Totally get it. But I think we're not nihilistic in the, Camus sense that we don't care about anything. Mm-hmm. People care a lot about things that they should care about. But that political nihilism, I think, can be a very dangerous thing. We live in despite what you might see on Twitter and whatever, we live in a very orderly society with certain unspoken rules and certain spoken rules as well. And people generally abide by them.
They follow the law.
But
they follow the rules.
But that's like a thin, invisible line.
Yeah.
And I think we take it for granted that we live in an orderly society. And I don't think it takes that much for something like that to unravel. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, a genuine fear that we should all have. And that's why strengthening our institutions, catering and supporting the material needs of people becomes all the more important. Mm-hmm. Because once you start doing that, then you can, start to build up again, just optimism for the general system and our society and as a whole. Because again, it leads to that. I mean, we've been talking about this dichotomy quite a bit, but even some of the people that will, complain on Twitter or to their friends about, oh, Canada's going to shit and everything is broken and blah, 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 blah. And there are some valid claims, ER rooms, schools, as we discussed. They still have pretty happy lives. They have a family to go to. They have a roof over their head. Yes, groceries are expensive, but you still have access to food. It's not like we live in a society where there's no food. And so I think it's going back to this idea of touching grass. It's like, we don't have to be extremists to tackle the issues that we have. And I think that, again, the online discourse, being able to have your confirmation bias and being siloed into, different online communities lends itself to that. And that's something we have to be really careful and considerate about. I'm very pro AI. I think that's the future. But the concerns about AI in terms of how we can be manipulated, in terms of what it does to our human-to-human connection, are very real. And so how do we harness, the next human evolution in terms of artificial intelligence without losing, what makes us human?
So in closing and wrapping things up, you have faith in humanity, you have faith in Canada, you have faith in the province of British
100%.
Columbia, you have faith in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia.
But we have a lot of challenges.
We have challenges.
And they're big.
Yes.
I'm not diminishing that. And we could be doing a lot better on a lot of different fronts. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately, because what else are you going to do?
That's right. No, listen, the option, what's the option?
Yeah.
What's the option? Seriously, what is the option?
We're sitting here in general safety. We can go outside in general safety. You can go back to your home, a roof over your head. Things are good for most people. Yes, there are huge challenges and who knows what tomorrow brings. But at the end of the day, if you don't have hope or if you can't be grateful for what you have, then what are we doing?
Have hope, man. Have hope. Mo, listen, man, thank you. We've been talking for quite a while.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun and like to continue the discussion. We have another year to go. We have municipal elections. I'd love to have you on again and talk about what's going on in this province. what's going on from a societal perspective, I always enjoy the discussion. And I thank you so much for coming, man. I really do. I really do. And it's VANCOLOUR.
This is VANCOLOUR.
This is VANCOLOUR.
Thursday nights at 9 on Check TV if you haven't cut the cord, but you can find it on YouTube, and all the episodes are online as well.
And I might take a listen on CBC. You never know, man. You just don't.
Kyle Lee and I have the best political panel in the entire province. I will stand by that.
Okay, my man. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.